I'm going to go back now to looking at anything that's involving the seventh day or 7 days. There's a lot more things mentioned in Exodus about the seventh, but a lot of it is just repeats. The number 7 or seventh is mentioned so many times in Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers, but the majority of the times that it's mentioned, it's talking about something completely ridiculous or some sort of sacrifice, so I'm going to ignore most of that. The next time the number 7 is brought up is in Joshua, in the story about Jericho, where the armies had to circle around Jericho 7 times and the city would fall and the army would win, I guess.
And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days. And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow with the trumpets. And it shall come to pass, that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, the wall of the city shall fall down flat.
In the story of the city of Jericho, everyone is supposed to be destroyed except for this one woman who's supposed to be saved. I believe anyone who thinks this is a real story and that God really did help destroy this city, they're worshipping a demon, they're sick. I don't think this is a true story. I don't believe that God starts wars. I don't believe that God hands cities over to people to be destroyed or curses cities so that they can be destroyed. No, what I think this is referring to, though, is a story that's inspired by the true sacrifice. I believe that this city is actually a woman.
And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed.
I believe this hidden nation is actually a woman who's actually Eve, hence all people on earth are actually her children, her seed.
And his seed shall be in many waters, and his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted.
But for this woman to have children, she needs a father as well, so she will have a king, this father figure, who's often represented as Abraham or many of the other male figures.
God brought him forth out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of an unicorn. He shall eat up the nations his enemies.
You just need to remove the constant savage behavior throughout the Bible.
And shall break their bones, and pierce them through with his arrows.
Because that's just the writers and their fantasies about what's right and what's wrong coming through. But they were all wrong because the God that they were worshipping was a demon, not the real God. But the real God was subtly influencing these books, but only the good parts, not the bad parts.
Blessed is he that blesseth thee, and cursed is he that curseth thee.
The NIV version more specifically says, blessed are those who bless Israel, cursed are those who curse Israel. So it's specific to Israel, this nation, this woman, this city. And in the story of Jericho, we have another story about a cursed city.
Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city, and the city shall be accursed, even it and all that are therein, to the Lord.
So I believe the hidden message behind this story is that Israel isn't actually a nation, but rather is a person, and it's prophesying that something bad will happen to this city, who is actually a woman. We know it lasts for years, but we don't know the exact number, but because they circle the city 7 times, it could be hinting at the tribulation lasting for 7 years. I think this could be a story that's inspired by what will happen to the Messiah. A Messiah will come.
Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city.
In this story, it's represented as a city, but really it's a woman. People won't be allowed to go in it. They won't be allowed to talk to her.
And ye, in any wise, keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest ye make yourselves accursed when ye take of the accursed thing.
And what is this cursed thing?
And the city shall be accursed, even it and all that are therein.
People won't be allowed to go in it. They won't be allowed to talk to her. They'll just have to go round this city. So watch what she does, watch what she preaches. And after 7 days...
And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war. Thus shalt thou do 6 days. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow with the trumpets.
Only then can they reveal the knowledge. So this again points to a 7-year tribulation, although it could be referring to a 6-year tribulation, because it could be saying that in the 7th year Christianity will be completely destroyed. In this story there's another mention of this woman called Rahab.
Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent.
I think the character of Rahab represents another form of this Israel character, a woman, not a nation. In her story, she's saved just before the city actually collapses, right at the end of the 7th day. This could be hinting at how Israel, this woman, will suffer for 7 days but will be saved just at the end, because of the messengers that were helping give this message out.
Because she hid the messengers that we sent.
Is this referring to the messages that I'm preaching now? And it's saying how I'll have people that will help spread this message around. So on one hand, the city could be referring to Rahab. On the other hand, the city could be referring to Christianity and the destruction of Christianity. And so I think this story isn't actually talking about a real story that happened, but rather it's just a story that's been inspired by what will happen to the true Messiah. This woman, this city. And the story is saying how you must stay away from this cursed thing for 7 years, because this 7 is a very prominent number. Although I'm really hoping that it's wrong, because if I have to wait 7 years, that means that I have to wait till 2020. Although it does say you're supposed to circle the city on the 7th day, so that's pointing to 2019, not 2020. Although really I'm hoping that it'll actually only be 6 years, for it will take quite a long time to expose all this news to the people. I'll have to do a lot of work to try and promote my religion to the world, and I'll need to round up people that would want to help me do this. This will take a lot of work, hence I'm hoping this work will be done in the 6th day. That way my 7th year can truly be a year of rest. I believe that things I'm doing now are inspiring things that are happening in the past, but just because I'm exposed on the 6th day, that doesn't mean that this influence that I'm subconsciously giving off isn't no longer happening. It could still be happening. It could still be happening in the 7th year as well. And so maybe this Holy Spirit that's working within me to inspire everything of the past, maybe this will stop by the end of the 7th year. But at the same time, by that time, everything needs to be completed, including the exposure of the Christ, including the reign and acceptance of the Christ. That could be the truth, for most of the prophecies are about the rise of this Messiah, and this hasn't happened yet. If this happens in the 6th year, and then I have another year to just digest it, that could be why there's so many prophecies about it, because they're not picking up on what my brain is thinking right now, but rather they're picking up on what my thoughts are in the 7th year. I'm hoping that's the case, in which case Martin might come back to me this spring. In Judges it also says this:
The children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years.
I believe the writers get very confused between Israel and the children of Israel, because they see it as being the same thing, whereas I believe that Israel is Eve, the true rejected Christ that everyone has rejected, and the children of Israel is actually just the children of Eve, hence the people. But here it says that the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord I believe is Israel. And then it goes on to talk about how they were delivered into bondage for 7 years.
The children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years.
I think that is in reference to Israel, not Israel's children. Because the next sentence actually says Israel, it doesn't say Israel's children. I think the people are just very confused because they believe that Israel is a nation, not a person.
And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel. And so it was when Israel had sown that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites, and the children of the east.
And likewise, when they talk about all these different tribes coming up against Israel, they're not talking about specific tribes, they're just talking about different people, really. Whether you're black, white, Asian, you're still people. And so you have to remember this book was written thousands of years ago, and people back then believed that people from different tribes were different people, hence the fascination with all these different names of different tribes. Really, it doesn't mean anything. People came up against Israel, that's what the story is saying.
And they encamped against them, and destroyed the increase of the earth, till thou come unto Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor ass.
And what I'm saying is that this is just a fantasy story, most likely not true, but there is some inspiration behind the truth, which is that it's prophesying that a woman will suffer and be impoverished, not have that much money.
And they entered into the land to destroy it. And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites.
Long for a better life, which is what I do every single day. It says it happens for 7 years. I believe this could be how long the sacrifice lasts. And since I believe that I'm the sacrifice, I think this could be pointing at how long I'm going to be suffering for, because I wasn't suffering in this way before I found out who I was. E.g., the 7 years starts from 2013. I wasn't suffering before this because before I was just a normal person. Okay, I had shitty parents. Okay, I couldn't get a job. Okay, I couldn't be attracted to guys. Okay, nothing seemed to go well for me. But at the same time, I was a normal person. It's just how it was. I wasn't suffering. I didn't believe that someone had cursed my life. I thought that this was just my lot. And it didn't bother me because I wasn't anything special. There's millions of people in the world that will never get their ideal job, that will never really be that happy. But that's just how it is. I didn't see myself as being anything different to that. It was only when I started believing that I was the Christ and started believing that thousands of people knew and were doing things about me behind my back. This is when I started suffering, because this is when I started looking at what they had, thinking this is unfair. How come they have all that and I have nothing? How come my life is cursed because of something that's not my fault? How come religious people love the thought of Christ taking the punishment for themselves, for their mistakes? That's not fair. I hate those people. And then I started reading the Bible and believing, okay, it was cursed because of these stupid people around the world. Because of the stupid religious people who believe such a nonsense book. Believing this makes me hate people even more, makes me hate my life even more, it makes me hate being alive, and it's making me suffer far more than what I was suffering before, because before I just didn't think about it. And now that I am thinking about it, I feel like every story is just another story about me, and this one is just one more story that seems to be about how I feel like lots of people are gathering up against me. People did stupid things, they believe stupid things, but so what? It's none of my business. Now it's like, yes, it is my business because I am the Christ. But none of you people will believe me because you're too busy thinking that Israel is a nation. And by believing that this story is 100% accurate, you also acknowledge all this racism and sexism and shit that's just in the Bible. It later says,
And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. And it came to pass, when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord because of the Midianites, that the Lord sent a prophet unto the children of Israel, which said unto them, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt, and brought you forth out of the house of bondage, and I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all that oppressed you, and drave them out from before you, and gave you their land.
Again, I believe this is the made-up story about nonsense, not saying something that's truthful, but rather they're just an inspiration of truth, because this story is about how Israel will be saved, Israel will be delivered, Israel will be taken out of bondage and saved by a prophet. I believe that this is her husband, this is when the husband comes back to her, and they are saved. But of course, the writers believed that this husband was the Lord. They mistaked the father for God and converted Israel to a nation of people because this is what they want to believe. They want to believe that God the Father is going to come down and rescue millions of people. I bet this book was also written by Israelites, hence why they wanted to believe that the Israelites are saved. But yeah, just because there's words written on a piece of paper doesn't mean they're truthful, doesn't mean that God is going to come down and rescue millions of people that live in Israel. If this is supposed to be a story about God saving millions of people, then why hasn't God done it already? Clearly it's not going to happen. But if this is a story inspired by what's happening to Israel, which is that she suffers and then is saved by someone that she thinks is like a Lord or like a God because she looks up to this person, then that makes sense, and I believe that's the inspiration behind this story. In Judges 14, it talks about a 7-day wedding that Samson went through. He forced this woman to marry him, and she wept throughout the 7 days.
And she wept before him the 7 days, while their feast lasted.
On the 7th day, she revealed a riddle, hence making Samson lose this bet. The riddle makes no sense.
Put forth thy riddle, that we may hear it. And he said unto them, Out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And they could not in 3 days expound the riddle.
The riddle makes no sense, the story makes no sense. The answer of this supposed riddle doesn't make any sense either.
And the men of the city said unto him on the 7th day before the sun went down, What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And he said unto them, If ye had not plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle.
The answer of this supposed riddle doesn't make any sense. But after he calls this woman a heifer, and the red heifer in the Bible is supposed to be a form of sacrifice, and so I think that's what the riddle is. The riddle is, this is what happens to this woman.
And he came up and told his father and his mother, and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath. Now therefore get her for me to wife. Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well.
Samson forced this woman to marry him, and she wept.
And she wept before him the 7 days, while their feast lasted.
She's threatened to be burnt alive.
And it came to pass on the 7th day, that they said unto Samson's wife, Entice thy husband, that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn thee and thy father's house with fire.
To save herself, she reveals a hidden answer that she spent a full 7 days suffering to get.
And it came to pass on the 7th day that he told her, because she lay sore upon him, and she told the riddle to the children of her people.
And then Samson goes and calls her a heifer. What do you think she is? No one seems to give a shit that this woman was being forced into marrying Samson. No one seems to care that she was crying throughout the whole 7 days. People just blasé it and continue believing that God is amazing. But yeah, I believe this story is another story that prophesies about a woman who's going to go through some sort of 7-year covenant like this woman did, a 7-day wedding where she'll be upset and depressed throughout the whole of that time. But at the end, on the 7th day, she'll reveal the riddle which is that she's the heifer, because that's what Samson called her, the heifer. The heifer is supposed to be a sacrifice. And so it's saying that this woman will come and say, yes, I'm the sacrifice. I'm the real Christ, not Jesus. It's me, a woman So in this story, Samson's wife, like Israel, is being represented as being like the suffering Messiah. And since her suffering lasted for 7 days, this could be indicating that my suffering is going to last for 7 years, and on the 7th year, which is 2019, I'm going to reveal the riddle, which is that the riddle itself doesn't actually make any sense, but the part where Samson calls this woman a heifer is actually just in reference to this woman being the red heifer, which in the Bible is known as a sacrifice. And it's not saying the sacrifice will do what Jesus did and physically die and be raised again on the 3rd day. No, it's saying how this sacrifice is how someone's going to be forced into an unwanted marriage for a long period of time, an unwanted covenant. But at the end of the 7 days, she'll be freed. I also want to point out that Samson did not have the Spirit of the Lord within inside of him, because this is what he went on to do.
And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon, and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoil, and gave change of garments unto them which expounded the riddle.
If you think that someone who would kill 30 people is filled with the Spirit of God, then there's something very wrong with you, and you are clearly worshipping a demon god who thinks murder is okay. And it's not just murdering evil people, no, it's murdering people because he's lost a bet over a riddle that didn't make any sense. If you think that that's what someone would do if they've got the Spirit of the Lord inside of them, you're clearly twisted inside. I think this Samson guy actually represents the Jesus character, someone who believes that he's God's gift to the world, when really all he is a liar, a cheat, a thief, a murderer, ... And most importantly, someone who has no respect for the bride of Christ.
And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, whom he had used as his friend.
In 1 Samuel 10, there's a prophecy about how this particular guy has become a prophet. So the story is a prophecy about a guy becoming a prophet.
And the Spirit of the Lord will come upon thee, and thou shalt prophesy with them, and shalt be turned into another man.
I believe this guy represents another Messiah figure.
And let it be, when these signs are come unto thee, that thou do as occasion serve thee, for God is with thee.
So basically, I believe that it's just another story inspired by what this Messiah figure will go through in the future. And it's saying how one day in the future, someone will come, will make prophecies.
Behold, a company of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God came upon him, and he prophesied among them. And it came to pass, when all that knew him beforetime saw that, behold, he prophesied among the prophets, then the people said one to another, What is this that is come unto the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? And one of the same place answered and said, But who is their father?
And people will be unsure at first whether or not this person is a real prophet. It says that they're unsure because they ask questions like, who is this person's father? Well, I believe that I know who the real father is. I believe that it's Satan reincarnated, e.g. Martin Dodd. And yeah, when I tell people this, they are going to question whether or not I'm a real prophet, because they're going to be like, your father's different to Jesus' father. And likewise in the story, they question Samuel because they think he might not be a real prophet, because who is his father?
Therefore it became a proverb, Is Saul also among the prophets? And when he had made an end of prophesying, he came to the high place.
But as part of one of the rituals, things that he must do something for 7 days.
And behold, I will come down unto thee to offer burnt offerings, and to sacrifice sacrifices of peace offerings. 7 days shalt thou tarry till I come to thee, and show thee what thou shalt do.
Again, pointing to a 7-year tribulation, because I believe a day represents a year. And then the people are convinced that he is the true Messiah after the 7 days has passed.
And it was so, that when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart. And all those signs came to pass that day.
I believe all the signs are prophecies within the Bible, and it's saying that this person will fulfill all these prophecies, fulfill these signs, only she'll suffer so much that she will have a different heart by the end of it. Likewise with me, I kind of liked people before this. I definitely don't now, because I've seen what kind of monster they're happy to worship. And I've seen the huge number of people out there that just long for the day that God comes down to murder and destroy lots of people. You know, they talk about it with the excitement in their heart, like they long for this day that millions of people die. They're terrible.
And Saul's uncle said, Tell me, I pray thee, what Samuel said unto you. And Saul said unto his uncle, He told us plainly that the asses were found, but of the matter of the kingdom whereof Samuel spake, he told him not.
Samuel then goes on to say this.
And Samuel called the people together unto the Lord, and said unto the children of Israel, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians.
I believe Israel is the sacrifice who is saved. So I don't believe this is a true story, I just believe this is a story inspired by Israel.
I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and out of the hand of all kingdoms, and of them that oppressed you.
You can say she's saved by the Lord, but I think her husband is the only one that can actually save her, because her life will continue being shit until there's more meaning in it, and I think her husband can provide some sort of meaning, providing she likes him. Well, that's how I feel now. I feel like my life has no meaning or real purpose. I'm making all these videos to help the people, but at the end of the day, I don't even care about the people because they don't give a shit about me. The majority of religious people, these people, love the thought of God coming down to kill millions of people. So why the fuck should I give a shit about those people who don't give a shit if I'm one of those millions of people who are murdered by the Lord? But I think if I wasn't single, I wouldn't bother putting all my time and effort into this crap. I would just be living my life and focus on being happy, because I would just be happier in general. If I had a husband, I'd probably also have kids, and if I had kids, I wouldn't be spending my time making these videos. Hence, I wouldn't be focusing my time on how disgusting the world is.
And ye have this day rejected your God, and ye have said unto him, Nay, but set a king over us.
This is what people have done to me. They've rejected the fact that Israel is the true God, and they've created this false God that wants to murder everyone. 7 days is also mentioned in Samuel 13. In this it says how 7 days are the appointed times by Samuel.
And he tarried 7 days, according to the set time that Samuel had appointed.
Only the people don't gather in these days. They don't come to him, they wait until after the 7 days.
That the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed. I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering.
Again, more inspiration from, I believe, the sacrifice, and her appointed times equaling 7 years. It's weird though what's said next, because Samuel says to this guy who's made this sacrifice,
And Samuel said to Saul, Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue.
He's telling this guy that he's done foolishly because now the kingdom of God is going to be Israel's forever. I think this is true because I believe Israel is me, and I'm saying how me giving this new interpretation of these stories is proving that I'm inspiring some of these things, hence proving that I have some sort of power to inspire these stories of the past. Hence by proving that I am the Christ, hence allowing me to establish my kingdom, my religion, my new telling of the Bible. But it's true that the old version, the old telling, that's all going to be scrapped.
But now thy kingdom shall not continue.
Because these books don't make any sense.
The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee.
They're all about past tribes and going to different places that just don't exist, you know.
And Samuel arose, and gat him up from Gilgal unto Gibeah of Benjamin. And the people that were present with them abode in Gibeah of Benjamin, but the Philistines encamped in Michmash. And the spoilers came out of the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. 1 company turned unto the way that leadeth to Ophrah, unto the land of Shual. And another company turned the way to Beth-horon. And another company turned to the way of the border that looketh to the valley of Zeboam, toward the wilderness.
I wouldn't even be surprised if some of these places didn't ever exist. My version would just be to scrap all that and just start a completely new story with a completely new interpretation of how these stories make prophecies and how you should understand them and the pathetic message behind them. E.g., most of them are not to give you moral advice or to tell you how to live your life, but rather they're just literally prophecies that make a prophecy about someone to come in the future. The true religion or kingdom of Israel. Israel being a woman. But you need to scrap so much of the book. You know, all this nonsense about these different tribes going to different places. Mishmash, Jebian, Hogwarts. The land of the hobbits. Sounds like made up words, to be honest. In 1 Kings 20 it says this,
Therefore will I deliver all this great multitude into thine hand, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. And they pitched one over against the other 7 days. And so it was that in the 7th day the battle was joined, and the children of Israel slew of the Syrians 100,000 footmen in 1 day.
Okay, you have to ignore all the murder and bloodshed, but it talks about there being rivalry, I guess, between 2 parts, and on the 7th day, that's when these 2 join and they have a big war. Okay, thousands of people die, you have to take that part out of it. But this story could be prophesying that when Israel comes, she's against the Christians, she's against all their religion. But on the 7th day, her people expose the knowledge that she's the real Christ and she wins. I believe these stories are just inspired by something that's going to happen to Israel in the future, a woman. But that doesn't mean that hundreds of thousands of people are going to die. I think these stories are just inspired by something, which is that their religion, their belief will die on the 7th year. I can't 100% say that these prophecies are about me, but what I can say is that if nothing happens by the end of the 7th year, I can assume that it's definitely not about me, but rather that it might be about someone else who's going to have a religion like this, and they're going to win on the 7th year of their preaching. That's what I believe these prophecies are pointing to, because there's so many prophecies that use the number 7 within. In this story, when it talks about the people that were slain by Israel, I think what it really means is that the people that gave up their religion for Israel's religion. But when it comes to the people that weren't slain by Israel, the people that ran away from her religion and didn't believe it, this is what it says about them.
But the rest fled to Aphek into the city, and there a wall fell upon 27,000 of the men that were left.
It says they hit a wall. So like the people who believe in Jesus, they're going to continue believing in Jesus, only they're going to hit a wall because they're going to realize that Jesus didn't actually fulfill any of the prophecies, and that all he did was create new prophecies. And if this woman is the Antichrist which is prophesied in the Bible, then why is it that Jesus isn't going to show at the arrival of this Antichrist? Because that's what he promised to do, but it's not going to happen. They won't believe it at first, but they will eventually. Hence they'll hit this big wall. I think though, however, it will take 7 years for this war to start, because 7 days or 7 years is mentioned so many times. Another example of this is in 2 Kings. Chapter 8, it says,
Then spake Elisha unto the woman, whose son he had restored to life, saying, Arise, and go thou and thine household, and sojourn wheresoever thou canst sojourn. For the Lord hath called for a famine, and it shall also come upon the land 7 years. And the woman arose, and she went with her household, and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. And it came to pass at the 7 years' end, that the woman returned out of the land of the Philistines, and she went forth to cry unto the king for her house and for her land.
So here's another little story. I'm not saying that it's a true story, but it's a story about how a woman has been prophesied that there's going to be a famine coming for 7 years. And so she must go to a different land to get away from this famine. But after the 7 years, she can return back and plead to the king about her household and her home. You know, I don't really get this story. I don't think it makes much sense. But I think the inspiration behind this story could be prophesying that a woman will come, go through a 7-year tribulation. This is the suffering of the land, not a land, but this woman. But after the 7 years, she'll plead to the people about how she's the real Christ and that how she's the mother of this land. Okay, that's not exactly what the story says, but you admit that the story that I've just told is very similar to the story that has been written. Okay, I've just looked to see how many more times the word 7 is mentioned in the Bible, and well, it's mentioned tons and tons more times. I'm only halfway through the Old Testament, and I've still got loads more to do that I'm not going to bother doing anymore. I might come back to this later, but I'm losing inspiration now to focus on the 7, because I don't want it to be 7, I want it to be 6 or 5. Right now it's March the 10th. So the 5th year is basically over, and I'm now starting the 6th year of this tribulation. But it's basically been 5 full years. And I've got a strong feeling that studying whether or not it's 6 or 7 years, studying this isn't going to help me, because I'm never going to be able to find an answer. Because these stories are just mildly similar to the story that I'm going through. They're not accurate. So therefore, I don't think I'll be able to get an accurate answer as to whether or not the tribulation is 6 or 7 years. So I'm going to leave it and move on, because a lot of these stories are only mildly similar. 6 or 7 years are also mildly similar. So when it says it's 7 years, it could just be meaning 6 years and 1 year to get over it. And when it says 6 years, it could just mean 6 full years. And then the 7th year is the year of action. But because I believe these stories are only inspired by what will happen to me, I don't think I'll actually get an accurate answer as to whether or not it's 6 or 7 years. So I'm going to move on. The next video is going to be about Aaliyah and proving that I'm her. I think those videos might be a more useful thing to do with my time.